this is so gray and it's so hard to explain. Um, but let me attempt, and explain this. I actually took some time. I joined back. So unlike Akanksha, I really wanted to come back to work. Okay. I started asking some of these questions to myself. And by the way, both, as I said, my mother and mother-in-law are working. So of course, I got some nuggets from them. And I also personally feel that while my mother was working, but it was such a joy. It was such a joy to see her going to work, and she was a teacher, she was a principal, um, wrapping her sari and then getting ready for school and then coming back and talking about stories of her workplace and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So there were those childhood memories, and same with my husband. I think my mother-in-law is a gynae, so she has had like a really super challenging role, right? Mother at home, gynec in hospital, and when you are in a hospital, nobody comes with some great stories or happy stories, right? So that I'm saying, that was one of the thing which was an input to me. But B, I started asking some questions to myself. What is that I really want? And I was at the same cusp. I was asked to step up, uh, you know, larger team, bigger role, and so on and so forth at Zomato. And this is, when my baby was 10 months. I was just back to office, and I was also expressing milk in the rooms, which we had identified then. But all this was going on, and then I started asking some deeper questions to myself. What do I really want? And it's hard to make decision as a mother, also because unlike majority, like in rest of the places, you at least know how will it pan out. There is some analysis, there are some data points. पेरेंटिंग डज नॉट हैव एनी डेटा पॉइंट यू डोंट नो कि 1 to 2 ईयर में क्या होने वाला है 2 से 3 में क्या होने वाला है post 3 post 5 मेरी रिक्वायरमेंट कितनी होगी वर्सेस लेट्स से द सपोर्ट सिस्टम की रिक्वायरमेंट लाइक यू डोंट नो हाउ जैसे राइट नाउ व्हेन शी वाज 10 months she was entirely on me, she was on my milk, barely 30% of her diet was on semi solids, etc., etc. So that time you don't know how will the variables play out, and you also don't know क्या predictability schedule में बढ़ेगी or will it still be as unpredictable and all of that. So there was just too many variables in life, and I thought कि what is most important for me right now. And in that entire pie of couple time, me time, kid time, job time, house time, family relationships, and all of that. I honestly felt that, and as Akanksha said, never said never and all of that, but we can't say right now, we have some stances in our life which may change a year or 2 year hence as our kids grow up. But at least at that point in time, I felt that it is important for me to continue the job life. That was the bottom line that I wanted to go with. And when I say I wanted to continue with the job life, I also wanted to make sure that I don't burn out. It's not a sprint. I wanted to, so I was in a very fast paced place, and hustle culture is generally so celebrated these days. So I all I felt was that I don't want to run at a speed of 100 kilometer per hour, and it's nothing to do with my capability. I can do that completely on a bit right now. Ensure my family priorities and everything is taken care of. Because by the way, in the entire process, what Akanksha and me have not talked about, and of course, evidently so, is the self care. There is one part which is us. We have lost ourselves in this entire journey, right? So, and we both can touch upon that piece. I'm sure, there were certain hobbies that we used to have which have just we've just lost somewhere, and right now, even if we get that time, we crave that time to sleep, to just do nothing. There is a space of nothingness where I mean, it's just, and as she said, it's a bliss, when the kids are not around, you're getting like that half an hour or 15 minutes. It's just feels so good that I'm back to my normal self. But sorry, coming back to my topic, I was saying that, so what I decided was that, uh, I can, for now, I can probably take a step back and not be in such a critical role, which requires me, as you rightly mentioned, right? Being indispensable at both the places is not the right place to be in, especially when the kid is not even like 2 years, right? And maybe the stories change after they are 3, 4, and once they start their school. But right now, And also, I think the cost versus revenue, Lochan, one realization that also came to me was that job is a place, and of course, with all due respect, as I said, I was all charged up to go back. But job is also a place where I'm in a cog in a wheel, right? The show goes on even if I'm not there. But here at home, no matter how, the kids are resilient and blah, 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 and all the support system, but if you're not there, things just fall apart, right? People come in and step in to help you, but eventually you are still everything for them. And secondly, I think one thing which is so softer in aspect, but I must call this out. One realization that came to me was that in corporate life, as long as you're running at a fast pace, you're celebrated, right? And the moment, and as I said, this came during COVID, and when you kind of slow down, you start seeing the expressions around. But for the kid, even when I was looking the most ugliest person on the earth in my first 3 months, the baby still hugged me and wanted me as much as, like, that feeling of prioritization. And it has nothing to do, of course, I love my work. Problems, I mean, I can't sleep a night if I've not done like a great this thing. If there's something, if the job work satisfaction is not great, I have like a terrible night. All that is true. But like, I just realized that this being right now and few years hence, they'll be all by themselves, and this time will not come back again. So I think just going back to my layers, different layers inside, and finding the core need of me so that I can sleep peacefully. Because of course I did a fast-paced job for some time, and I realized when I was coming back, I was just coming back with a lot of guilt. ना उधर पूरा कर पा रही थी, ना इधर पूरा कर पा रही थी, and that was just leaving me shattered. So I think that clarity of what, and as Akanksha mentioned, nothing right or wrong. You just have to identify as a person, what do you really want, what are your priorities, what will give you a good night sleep. That's all that you want. And that question you have to ask yourself, and then you start working backwards basis, that you start building your support system and find the right jobs or find the right switches and so on and so forth.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna add something that just struck me while Swati was talking, right? There is, so I said something about how it's really important. I found that it was really important to set some sort of, all parents want to set an image for their child, right? You want to set an example. So what I want to set an example on might differ from what Swati does, and so what Lochan you might and somebody else might. It can differ, right? But everybody has those ideals that they want to role model for their kid, right? And I think career clarity that comes to so many new mothers has two more reasons, Lochan. I think one of them is that we are, and I think these work kind of simultaneously. So one of them is that we are enabling women a little bit more today than we were 2 and 3 decades ago. I think most of our mothers, I could be generalizing here, so I'll say a majority of them maybe went back to work because they had to,
Yeah, yeah.
right? I think there were very few mothers who went back with ambition and passion and all of that. I think it was more a financially driven
Yeah.
decision, right? Today, as that gets softened for a lot of us, right? What is simultaneously happening is that we're empowering them with a lot of programs, supportive environments, things like that, right? I can even speak at the risk of sounding like an advertisement for OFX, right? I think it's very important that I call out that when you just put a bunch of new mothers into a room to talk to each other, right? And then put some who are newer than the others, right? The newer ones are hearing the others talk, and they're seeing some light at the end of their
Yeah.
respective
Yeah.
tunnels, right? And when you see that line, you start to at least get the tools to think in this direction of what Swati said, right? Think about what do you like, what do you want. These sound like very intimidating concepts. How do I know what I want?
Yeah.
Right? How do I even start to think? I'm sleep deprived all the time. I'm not getting 3 square meals in a day. What do you mean think about what I want? Like, it's the most intimidating philosophical question. But I think when you're being provided with those tools to think. You're hearing other mothers who maybe crossed just a couple of months ahead of you, and they're saying, this got sorted out, that got sorted out, this is how I did it. Somebody or the other will resonate, right? And that's one part of it. I think simultaneously the other part that is happening is that in our constant endeavor to set examples for our children, right? The clarity piece starts working, because so I can speak for myself, while I wanted my daughter to see a working mother, right? It was important to me that my daughter does not see her mother as just a caregiver at home, but also holding a different identity, right? But at the same time, I didn't want my daughter to see her mother putting up with a job that she was no longer wanting to do. I wanted my daughter to learn from me that it's okay to take a risk, right? Subject to whatever your safety blanket might be, right? It's okay to step away from something that may not be serving you anymore, right? And I think these are all, I think all of them, wanting to be a role model makes you want to work, but wanting to be a role model also tells you don't teach them to just put up with something that is not. Like, I was coming out of work just stressed out and feeling like it's getting too much and I'm not being. So I think those are things that at some point I was like, she'll ask me, no, you say don't put up with something that doesn't work for you, and yet look at you.
Yeah.
So I think just wanting to have a good say do ratio is
Yeah.
another thing that
Yeah.
that
And sorry,
worked.
Lochan,
Yeah.
I'm adding one thing here which I missed on in the support group, which is the most critical part for me right now. Of course, I hopped over the nanny thing, which of course is there, and husband and family, etc. But the fellow moms, oh my God. Like you are going through shit, you just do a call, and you should have a gang of 4 5 fellow moms. This is the channel, this is the chamber, this is everything. You can vent out, you can talk, and the moment you hear somebody else is also going through the same thing, I can't tell you the sigh of relief in your head. So I just missed on that angle, which I think Akanksha covered up. Fellow moms, with what, and you will not even realize, like right now I'm speaking to one friend of mine with whom I'd not spoken for 10 years, but the moment we got to know that we had baby at around the same time, I think I'm speaking to her more
Yeah.
than my family right now. So fellow
Yeah.
moms is like one critical piece in the support system. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, where else, sorry, where else can you send pictures of your child's poop? And like, who else is going to stay friends
Yeah.
with you after that, So
So I remember a specific incident when we were researching before we put the working mom program together, and I was talking to a lot of mothers on what their typical challenges are. And one of the things this person said, she said, I was struggling with producing enough milk, and I wasn't producing enough, and I wanted to breastfeed my child as much as possible. She said, I was so stressed out, and I tried everything. My mother's telling me eat this, my mother-in-law's telling me do this, I'm doing all of that. She said, I spoke to some friend, and that person said, just do top feed, it's okay. I have been giving top feed
Yeah.
to my child,
Yeah.
and my child is absolutely okay. And the colleague, she said, she was like not a close friend, she's an acquaintance
Yeah.
colleague, but I just ended up sharing this with her. And she was just maybe few months ahead on the journey than me. She said, the minute I said, chuck it, I'm going to put the child on top feed, she said, I was able to produce milk. So it was such a, because I was
So
feeling so
stressed.
stressed about it that I was not able to do this. She said, then just the idea that it's absolutely okay
Yeah.
to give, if this is not happening, something else will happen. It's okay to give the child top feed. Just freed up my mind with the possibilities that are there. And the minute that happened, my body responded positively and was doing
It
it.
creates new
And
friendships. They just normalize everything, and I think motherhood is, we have to give a due credit to it. It creates such a transparent and true in its sense sort of friendships which are lifelong. So I think it's great. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I think there are two kinds of questions, right, that every mother looks for. Is it normal? Will it pass? Different kinds of
Yeah.
things will keep coming, right?
yeah.
Is this normal? Baby's doing this. Is this normal? Baby's so and so's color is this. Is this normal? Right? And also, my baby's not sleeping. Is this going to pass? Is my life going to be
Yeah.
like this? Right? And mothers just are the only place they'll be like, yes. Most of the time.
Yeah.
Most of the
Yeah.
time, they'll be like, yes, this is normal, or listen, this will
Yeah.
pass. Okay. And I think you don't believe anyone except a fellow mother,
Yeah.
Yeah.
a fellow new mother,
Yeah.
honestly. I think, yeah.
Yeah, I've heard this a lot, and some of my friends are like, "You don't have a kid, you don't say." I said, "Yeah, but I worked with other." Like, they don't know, you don't have a
Yes.
kid, you don't say. So I'm like, "Okay, fine." So we spoke about the role of communities, family, parents. We didn't touch on the role that your partners have played in kind of helping you in this. We'll probably talk about that at a separate note. But I definitely want to talk about what organizations can do, and how do you think companies can make a difference? I know there are a lot of policies in place, right? Like companies do have, let's say, flexible flexi work and daycare facility. They have mother's room, etc. But how are the organizations enabling the transitions back to work? I think that's so. I feel a lot of this is still focused on the child. I don't know how to put this. While it's of course focused on the mother, but it's still focused on the child
Yeah.
without talking to the mother as an independent entity or a working professional, and therefore even acknowledging all of these doubts and fears that you spoke about, that that a woman could have, and there can be many more that she's probably feeling. And in some cases, maybe my body has changed, and I'm not comfortable with the way I look. So I used to wear, let's say, a coat suit to work, and I can't fit into it anymore, or I don't look good in it. So that itself diminishes my confidence. I haven't been in touch with any of my colleagues. Some have got promoted in the meantime. So a lot of these things are also happening in parallel while you're also raising the child. So what can organizations do? What have you seen them do? What has worked? I know small incidents you shared about your managers as well, but by and large, beyond the policies, what do you think organizations can do?
Akanksha, you, yeah.
Sure. I think, Lochan, if I were to zoom out from the smaller examples and the smaller, very micro level activities that we both kind of gave examples of, right? I think one of the easiest ways for me to kind of pass on a message is through an analogy, and it is to say the only way that an organization can truly support a mom, a new mom, is to try to behave like a mother for just a little while, right? And what does that mean? It means all of the new messages, the messages that a new mom picks up, right? Don't compare your child to another child, right? For a minute, just imagine that the new mother coming back to work is basically a new baby that has come into your life, right? Doesn't know what she's doing, is sort of taking a leap of faith towards you, and is not sure whether you will catch on strong enough, right? But you are all she has in that space, right? Don't compare her to other working moms. So and so took only this much time to come back into full force. What is so different about you? Right? Don't say that one's kid. So we all learn very early on that you shouldn't compare how much somebody else's child is sleeping to how much your child is sleeping or eating or breast milk production and all of that, right? Um, and I think I strongly feel like unless an organization assumes the role of a mother for a new mother, they will not get this right. Right? Don't pat yourself on the back for doing the bare minimum. No mother will ever say, I fed and bathed and cleaned and gave shelter to my child. Please pat me on the back. It's the bare minimum that she will do, and she will not claim credit for it. Please don't claim credit for giving 6 months of maternity leave. The government mandates it. So do not focus your, I understand that PR is very, very important. I understand that you need to put policies in place. I get it. Please do it, right? But don't seriously expect credit for doing the bare minimum, right? It's almost it's almost defeating the purpose when a woman who's back at work is constantly reminded of what you gave her, right? It's literally like treating your baby like that throughout. It's like me sitting down with my daughter every day and telling her everything I've done for her, right? And if you think a mom doing that, sitting her daughter down and saying, I do this for you, I do this for you, I do this for you, you owe me, if you think that's problematic, then it's equally problematic what you're doing at the workspace. So I think, um, for me, I think if you really think about it, you need to be nurturing. You need to try and put yourself in her shoes as much as possible. You need to understand how so much of the world is now new to her, right? You need to really think about, and it doesn't mean that you need to have been a mother yourself. You can be a man, you can be a person who's chosen not to have children, you can be young, you can be old, it doesn't matter, right? But if you can just understand that this person has had a sea change in their lives, right, and is currently just lost. And here's the thing, like, I think what sets new mothers apart from new babies is that new mothers can leave you. Okay. And I think what organizations really need to understand is that, um, it's not a myth that mothers suddenly, almost overnight, develop these extremely competent skills. Okay, it's not a myth. It's, I can only say this after having experienced it. We operate on 3 hours of sleep in 24 hours. We operate on not showering for days, right? We don't wash our face. There was a week where I couldn't brush my teeth, right? These things become, I mean, it's so embarrassing to talk about it at that time, but it's true,
It's true.
right? You do not, and imagine then being taken advantage of in that period, right? You will suffer silently for some time until you won't anymore. And if you want to retain these powerhouses that are new mothers, because they come with all of these skills, right? Like, really, I mean, functioning on subhuman levels, right? Using your brain despite that, right? The possibility to think about three different scenarios at any given time, the possibility to be thinking both 5 minutes later and 5 years later for every decision that you're trying to make. Multitasking, time management, right? Leadership skills. You suddenly become this sole mentor and guide for this new being, right? If these are skills that you value as an organization, then you don't even realize these women who come back to work after mat leave have just come back from the best possible, like, leadership training, right?
Yeah.
And you get it for free practically. Okay, so I think it would be really helpful if they actually viewed it that way, right? And and new moms need support, right? They need nurturing, they need warmth, they need a welcoming space, right? uh it'll never be too much, right? And it's not hard to do those small things that both Swati and I shared, right? Like, get their peers, people who are already friends with them, just send them an alert email, right? 2 days prior, so and so is coming back. People will, of their own volition, bring a box of chocolates for that new mom,
Correct.
right? And she will feel better than anything else, you know? So it's not hard. You just have to think about all the small and big ways in which you would show up for a new baby. Just
The way you have put up Akanksha is so beautiful, and I think I will have very little to add on that. But Lochan, if you see one thing that is really coming out of what she's saying, and what we also both talked about, uh, organizations have done a lot in terms of tangible things. अच्छा ठीक है क्रैच लगा देते हैं 6 months की मैट लीव कर लेते हैं and all of that, and some of this is also, as she said, mandated, and these are like more like checklist कर लेते हैं but the softer aspects of, now imagine nobody on earth would think, uh, the way I talked about somebody receiving me when I was in office or giving me an office tour of the new place that we had gotten, or she talking about the security guard. Nobody on the earth would have thought that this would have left a mark in our mind and would have left like a sense of gratitude. I think what is missing right now is these softer aspects where people are more sensitized. And as she said, uh, the loose remarks, right after you're back, like, अरे आप तो 6 महीने छुट्टी पे थे. अच्छा, अच्छा आपको आज भी जल्दी जाना है, like these are the last things that you want to hear, because as I say, it's ram back to work. Now ram back to work, a managers more importantly have to be sensitized about what really happened in 6 months, and it is irrespective of anybody having a child, not having a child, gender, age, and so on and so forth. If you are managing a woman who is a mother, it is imperative that you know what she went through in 6 months. Only then, not even to a full extent, but at least to some extent, you'll be able to, understand or be on same page with her. So I think and I think the also, as she said, some sort of welcome email, or for example, I'd also recommended this in some of the organizations when I was speaking on this part, that when the woman is coming back, uh, uh, actually, some sort of thinking prior, the way women is also doing a mock run, right? How will she be back to work? Can the organizations also do some sort of homework, that from 6 months to 12 months, and I'm sure there are a lot of experts sitting in the panel of, HR and other forums, CX, etc., who can say ki 6 months to 12 months, anyway, the women can't be on a critical pod or anything that requires travel. And hence, can there be projects which are purely meant for, more mid-term, long-term thinking, where these women, but basically some sort of thinking before the woman has arrived or is about to arrive, some message to the team, some message, some emailer, but these are very small, small things that can be done. And I think, be more importantly, is, policies which are in paper had to be put in practice also, right? There is a room for expressing milk, but is there a 30-minute slot where I can do that in my calendar, right? So, and bottom line for me, according to, I think, how any person should think about it, is, do you really want to retain working mothers? If you have intention to do that, I think you will fight for it and you'll find the way. And as she said, working mothers get that balance which is otherwise so missing. There's a void in the organizations. I know, as I spoke about, right, hustle right now is being so glorified and celebrated, but the entire balance is created through women, and more so by working mothers. So the first goal, as I said, should be, do you really want to retain working mothers? If you want to, then these are the five things that can be done, and then there is a conversation and there's a dialogue. But why am I also saying it, that is that there are a lot of organizations who also feel, and at the risk of sounding wrong here or being controversial, but organizations do feel that, why should we have a woman instead of, let's say, a bachelor or a man who can give, let's say, 15 hours a day or so on and so forth. And that's, I'm sure this is like a very strong stark question which must be coming in the round tables. But that's I think that is one decision which organizations have to take. And there are some really amazing organizations who, not just for the, gender inclusion and all of that, they really want women to be there on their round tables, and generally across the board. But I think organizations really need to keep that in mind. If that's the answer is yes, then I'm sure they'll find out the right ways. They can have the panel. For example, you guys were there to help us understand, speak to fellow moms, etc., right? And then they can create the right tools for it. But I think we have come far way, but there's a lot, and thanks to COVID, as I mentioned, but there's a long way to go to bring more and more women to the workforce, is what I would leave with.
Thank you so much. I think I know we've discussed about so many different aspects, and I know this conversation can go on for another,
Yes.
2 hours, and so, and there are so many different perspectives. It was lovely to have both of your perspectives, uh, different yet common, divergent yet very similar, still talking about the similar principles around, figure out what's priority for you, what is important at that point of time, uh, and learning to even let go as a new parent. It's okay to let go of certain things. At the same time, look, what an organization can do, and what are the few things that have left a mark on you itself says that it's the softer things that the organization does that makes a difference. And when they do it without claiming credit for it, it even makes it
Yeah.
it just feels that it's coming from a space of good place and heart, and not a PR and a checklist exercise. Thank you so much, both of you, for this conversation. It was lovely to have you both here. And I'm sure all the new mothers, expectant mothers, young mothers who are listening to this, all other organizations also who are listening to this can really find value and feel comfort that, okay, we are not the only ones. There are others who feel so as well, and feel that bit of comfort for sure. So, through all of this, we are hoping that their career journeys remain uninterrupted. And with that, I really want to thank both of you for being here.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Lochan.
you.
Thank you. And while we have talked a lot about it, it is not as difficult as it may sound. It is lovely.
It's
It's the best phase of your life. You learn a lot, and the amount of happiness and love that you'll get through this phase is inexplicable. I think it's beyond, it's otherworldly.
Yeah, I agree. I think I've said this a few times before, and I think it's something I read somewhere, which is if you ever find yourself questioning whether you're a good parent, and I think a lot of new mothers find themselves questioning whether they're a good parent or whether they're a good working person, either a professional, right? If you ever find yourself asking if you're good, it means you're good. The ones who are not good don't ask. Okay, so I think it really helps to keep reminding yourself of that along the journey, and any weird bump will pass. Keep going
Keep
as
going.
long as
Hang
it
in
makes
there.
sense to you.
Thank you, Lochan. Thanks, Akanksha.
Thank you so much.